This picture is designed to take the mystery out of how our VF pilots knock down enemy fighters. The keynote of fighter tactics in the United States Navy today is teamwork. Teamwork, coordination, cooperation, call it what you will, gives the fighter its greatest value in escorting bombers and torpedo planes on their missions, in enabling fighters to protect other fighters, in winning engagements that may mean the losing or the saving of a carrier. Teamwork begins with the two-plane section, and its pilot should concentrate on working together, even against a single enemy fighter. Don't attack recklessly. Many a fighter has started diving on an enemy, fat, dumb, and happy, only to find that there were enemy planes above, just waiting for him to go after the decoy so they could pounce on him. Before you attack, make sure there are no bandits 6 o'clock up. Don't fall for the enemy's tricks. More than once, a fighter pilot has seen a dogfight off in the distance and rushed in alone to try to help out a pal, only to find that the fight was staged by two enemy planes just to slicker him into unequal combat. Watch out for tricks like this. Sometimes they work. The fighter is smaller and a higher speed target than any other combat plane. Therefore, it's doubly important for you to get the pipper in the right place. You're not going to be able to stay on the target long, so you'd better be right on your lead. It is important to gain initial advantages through position on the enemy. Altitude is your wealth. Never spend it unless it buys you speed or advantageous firing position. Whenever you can, launch an attack out of the sun. You also gain the element of surprise when you can strike from out of the clouds on an unsuspecting enemy. The head-on is not the best because it gives the enemy an equal opportunity to shoot it out with you. And why give him an even break? The side approach can be changed into a variety of attacks against enemy fighters because their firepower is concentrated forward. Against a fighter, you can start a quarter approach and finish up on the tail. Or you can start a run off the target's nose and pull around close behind him. The fighter is the only plane against which the stern approach is preferable to all others. You get an almost no deflection shot at him, and he can't shoot back. All he can do is keep turning to try to get out of your gun sight. And when he does, you match every turn, firing a short burst when you know you're on. The steep overhead approach used against multi-placed aircraft is also modified in fighting single-seaters. Start it, if you can, with about a 2,000-foot altitude advantage. When you make an overhead attack against a plane of superior performance, delay your rollover a little and flatten your dive. Use your diving speed to break away sharply and recover out of his range. When the enemy has about the same performance as your plane, you can delay an overhead run still further, making your dive even flatter. And instead of breaking away, you can stay right on his tail. If he turns aside to make you overrun, you can swing to the outside of his turn, slip into the saddle position, and still stay on his tail. But if you swing too wide, there is danger that he'll reverse his turn, get you in a scissors, and meet you head on. Once you have mastered these approaches, you are a menace to the enemy from any position. But above all, don't be overconfident. Never underestimate your enemy. Don't try to dogfight unless you are sure you can outmaneuver the enemy. If you can't turn inside his turn, this is what happens to you. If he can execute a high wing over inside yours, this is what happens to you. And if you suddenly find yourself in this position, and try scissors with him, eventually he'll get on your tail and cut you down. The best way to beat this fighter is to start at least 2,000 feet above, barrel on in, shoot him, break away sharply in the blind spot beneath his wing so he can't see you until you are out of his range and away. There are defensive tactics to use against an enemy with superior maneuverability, and you will see how they work in the following picture of this series. Unless you have a superiority in numbers, you should get altitude advantage before starting an attack, even against an inferior fighter. If you are behind the enemy and he doesn't see you, it's a simple matter to push over into a dive and get on his tail. If he turns under you, do an opposite overhead. If he tries an Immelman, pull up and shoot him on his back, or do a high wing over above him and get on his tail before he can recover. If the enemy plane is approaching and you and your wingman are above and unseen, it is a simple matter to do opposite overheads in quick succession, reaching effective range, breaking away and recovering in bracket formation for a second attack if it should be necessary. If the attacking formation is split, the enemy is trapped even more tightly. He has to turn toward one of the fighters who accepts this head-on attack while his partner winds on in to the saddle position. When your section is above and ahead of the target, side approaches can be made, keeping the enemy in the middle so that he can't run out and escape. If he turns toward one of you, the other is on him like a flash. It is frequently effective for one pilot to make a feint toward the enemy, drawing his attention and keeping him occupied, while his section mate comes in for the kill. Teamwork is even more vital when the section goes in to make an attack on two enemy planes. It is a cardinal rule of offensive combat to concentrate the attack of both fighters on the enemy wingman. If you are above the enemy on an opposite course and unseen, you can both make overheads, breaking clear and regaining altitude. The same principles apply to attacking from a split formation. The two planes work as a team, centering their attention on one objective, the wingman. When that enemy is eliminated, they attack the other target. If the enemy is approaching on an opposite course, turn and wind in from both sides, keeping the target bracketed and dropping on his tail. You are in position to maintain the offensive, knocking off first the wingman, then his mate. When your section is above and ahead of the targets, you can keep the enemy under control by using side approaches. If your target turns right or left, either you or your teammate is a cinch for an easy tail shot. If the enemy planes separate, don't break your formation and start chasing both of them. Come down on the high man, shoot him, and then go after the second target. The enemy is going to be desperate and open up his bag of tricks. There are a lot of things he can do, and don't worry, he'll do them. But the thing to remember is this: if your fundamentals are right and your section works as a team, it doesn't matter what the enemy tries, you've got him. It cannot be overstressed that the section must function as a unit. Working together, its two planes can bracket. They can concentrate double firepower on one target. They can deliver quick successive thrusts on the same principle as the 1-2 punch. And they can give mutual protection. Don't think of a section as two planes, but as a single combat unit.
Thorough familiarity with all acrobatic maneuvers is a necessary preliminary to actual combat experience. The simple loop, basic for timing and coordination in the use of throttle and elevator. The half roll and reverse, necessary in the development of a fine sense of timing. The Immelman, the lifesaver of the First World War, and still the best maneuver to reverse course and gain altitude simultaneously. The snap roll depended on split-second timing and control. The slow roll, essential practice for precision in aileron control. The vertical reverse, used instinctively to avoid collision or gunfire. Here's an American pilot off to practice acrobatics. Let's see what he must remember to do. In performing the loop, here are the points of common errors. Failure to attain sufficient speed on the dive before the climb is started. Too much back pressure on the stick during the climb. This may lead to a stall. Retarding the throttle too early. This makes the airplane fall out of the loop. And lastly, errors in rudder use at any point in the loop. This results in failure to maintain the flight path in a vertical plane. Here is the slow roll, well done. Note how the nose comes up slightly, and the airplane rolls over on its back, and then continues around again. It is a true lateral roll dominated by aileron control. This ribbon path of flight shows the points of common errors in the slow roll. Most common is an error in orientation. This occurs when the airplane is not rotated about a definite position. Failure to use top rudder in the vertical positions of the roll always causes trouble. Failure to hold the stick well over to the side throughout the roll also spoils this maneuver. In a snap roll, the airplane rotates one full turn about a horizontal axis, as in a fast tailspin. Keep the nose up for the snap roll, and bring the airplane out with the horizon level. In making snap rolls, the more common errors which may spoil the maneuver include too sudden and extreme use of the controls, too high speed during any part of the maneuver, and starting the recovery too late. In the half roll and reverse, the nose is pulled up just as in a slow roll. Then the airplane is rolled over into the inverted position, held there momentarily, and then rolled back in the opposite direction. In the half roll and reverse, common errors include failure to orient the roll around a definite point, failure to apply top rudder in the 90-degree position, and failure to hold the stick forward in the inverted position. The vertical reverse is a quick change from a steep turn in one direction to a steep turn in the other. The airplane movements are rapid but controlled. Common errors in the vertical reverse are starting the reverse too soon before the turn is well begun, continued back pressure on the stick after the peak of the maneuver has been reached, and violent movement of the stick which may result in loss of control. In an Immelman, the airplane reverses its direction completely. The maneuver begins with a longer dive than that used for a loop. The airplane actually goes through the first half of a loop and the last half of a slow roll. The maneuver will not be a successful Immelman if these common errors are made. Failure to orient the maneuver toward a definite ground objective. Insufficient speed, which may result in complete failure, and failure to maintain horizontal and level flight during the half roll.
The basic tactical unit of air combat maneuvering is the two-fighter element. Compared with a single aircraft, This compact team offers maximum protection against surprise with a minimum loss of maneuverability. Let's look at a single fighter for a moment. Its areas of greatest vulnerability, areas where the pilot cannot see, are from 530 to 630 low, and the general area beneath the aircraft. Now let's add the important second member of the element, the wingman. This is his fighting position. About 600 feet back in the element leader's 60-degree maximum performance cone. From this vantage point, he can see what the leader cannot, the area below and behind. Thus protected, the leader can now concentrate on the primary purpose of all flight tactics, offensive action. When action develops, the wingman's duties are threefold. First, he watches the leader's 3 o'clock area, to 9 o'clock area, and apprises him of attacking enemy aircraft. Second, he keeps out of the leader's way. Third, he maneuvers to stay with the leader. This means both horizontal and vertical movement to keep his fuselage aligned with the leader's at all times. He stays out of the in-trail position unless forced there by maximum performance maneuvers. The wingman is primarily the defensive member of the fighting element. The leader is responsible for the offensive action. Let's see how the element works as a team in air combat maneuvering. The leader plans his attack to achieve surprise if possible. And if surprise can be accomplished, he'll concentrate on the enemy leader. But if the enemy is aware of the attack, the enemy wingman gets first attention. In either case, the friendly leader tempers the attack with enough caution to avoid what the enemy will immediately be looking for, the overshoot. The enemy may resort to the defensive split. If so, the attacking element combines to drive the enemy wingman down and away from his leader. They do this without sacrificing airspeed advantage. Then they shift the attack to the enemy leader before reaching a line abreast position. The experienced wingman momentarily continues his attack on the enemy wingman and then reverses to support his leader. The tactic is designed to divide the enemy and destroy him singly. With the enemy wingman out of the fight, the element now concentrates on the enemy leader, and that makes one less to deal with. Offensive action is that simple. Split them up and work on them one at a time. From this, you can see the advantage of working together. When you are on the defensive, your first defensive action is the hard turn. The objective is an overshoot through lateral separation. When separation is achieved, the element reverses and maneuvers to the 6 o'clock position. If the rate of overshoot is relatively slow, the element reverses. On the initial reversal, the wingman goes high in a vertical split. As the friendly leader scissors the attacking element, the friendly wingman drops down to support. In situations where lateral separation cannot be achieved, the defending element uses the defensive split. The wingman continues the brake in a slight nose-down attitude to preserve maneuvering airspeed. The leader pulls high, and the attackers are forced to make a choice. To take the low man, to take the high man, to split, or to shift from the low man to the high man. Let's see these one at a time. If they take the low man, he maneuvers as a single aircraft, attempting to force an overshoot. The friendly leader then drops down and attacks the enemy element from behind. If the attacking element selects the high man, the friendly wingman automatically reverses as the attackers slide past. The friendly leader makes a high G roll underneath and fights as a single aircraft. The friendly wingman maneuvers to support his leader. If the attacking element splits, 1-on-1, the friendly aircraft fight individually to destroy the attackers. The defenders should not attempt supporting action until they have successfully eluded or destroyed their individual attackers. Only then should they rejoin. Now, back to the original attack again. If the attackers switch from low man to high man, the friendly wingman makes a nose-high reversal as soon as the shift is apparent. The friendly leader breaks down into the attack and maneuvers as a single ship to gain an offensive advantage. The friendly wingman attempts to support his leader by completing the sandwich. By now, you can easily see why a thorough knowledge of basic fighter maneuvers is essential to the combat unit. It is only when both members of the element have this basic professional knowledge that they can actually attack superior numbers with reasonable chance of success.